I thought I had everything figured out. 5 years of marriage to Rachel, and I still felt that flutter in my chest when she walked into a room. Not the desperate infatuation of new love, but something deeper, the quiet certainty that I'd found my person, my partner, my future. At 34, I'd built a solid life as a senior project manager at a tech consulting firm. Rachel, 32, worked as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized advertising agency downtown. We lived in a comfortable suburban townhouse with cream-colored walls and a small garden that Rachel tended religiously every weekend. From the outside, we were the picture of young professional success. Every morning, I'd wake up to the smell of coffee brewing and find a Post-it note stuck to the machine. "Have a great day, handsome," or "Don't forget, dinner with Mom tonight." Or sometimes just a smiley face with "Love you" scrawled underneath in her messy handwriting. 5 years, and she still left those notes. 5 years, and they still made me smile. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our plans. Rachel would steal bites of my cereal while getting ready for work, claiming her own bowl was too much effort this early, she'd say. I'd leave my coffee mug in the sink instead of the dishwasher just to hear her mock dramatic sighs. Stupid, small things that somehow felt like the foundation of forever. But for 2 years now, there had been a shadow hanging over our perfect little life. We'd been trying to have a baby. It started casually enough, Rachel going off birth control, both of us excited about the possibility. Whatever happens, happens, we told each other. No pressure, no stress, just letting nature take its course. Except nature wasn't cooperating. Month after month, the pregnancy tests came back negative. Rachel started tracking her ovulation with the dedication of a NASA engineer. Our refrigerator became a command center of fertility charts, color-coded calendars, and supplement schedules. Intimacy became scheduled, clinical, measured in optimal windows and basal body temperatures. I watched my wife transform from the carefree woman who left love notes on the coffee maker into someone consumed by cycles and statistics. Every month brought the same crushing disappointment. Every negative test meant another night holding her while she cried into my shoulder, her whole body shaking with frustration and grief. "Maybe next month," I'd whisper into her hair, and she'd nod against my chest, but I could feel her hope dying a little more each time. We tried everything, adjusted our diets, no caffeine, no alcohol, more leafy greens, started exercising together, thinking maybe we needed to be in better shape. Rachel quit her stressful job for 3 months, convinced that work pressure was the culprit. We even tried some of her mother's old wives' tales, specific positions, certain foods, timing everything down to the minute. Nothing worked. Friends and family didn't help. "When are you two going to give us grandchildren?" Rachel's mother would ask at every family dinner, adding, "You're not getting any younger, you know." Colleagues would joke about us practicing for kids, nudging me with knowing grins. Every baby shower invitation felt like a knife twist. Every birth announcement on social media was a reminder of what we couldn't have. The worst part was watching Rachel blame herself. She'd stare at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, hands pressed flat against her empty stomach, and I could see the self-doubt eating her alive. "What if something's wrong with me?" she'd whisper. "What if I'm broken?" "You're not broken," I'd tell her, pulling her into my arms. "We just need to be patient. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen." I believed that, completely, utterly, without question. Looking back now, I realize I should have paid closer attention to the other changes. The subtle ones that I attributed to the stress of trying to conceive. Rachel had started working longer hours. Her boss, Derek Chambers, was demanding more from his team, she explained. Bigger campaigns, tighter deadlines, more pressure to perform. I'd met Derek a few times at company events. Late 40s, silver-haired, the kind of charismatic confidence that comes with money and power. He drove a BMW and wore suits that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. Derek was married to Michelle, a quiet blonde woman who seemed pleasant enough the few times we'd crossed paths. But recently, Derek had been showing up to social events alone. Michelle was always out of town or dealing with a family matter, he'd explain. At our last dinner party, he'd come solo, charming our friends with stories from his advertising days while nursing expensive whiskey. Rachel had been distracted lately, too. Not just with the fertility stuff, this was different. She'd be scrolling through her phone and quickly flip it face down when I walked into the room. She'd zone out during conversations, her mind clearly somewhere else. When I'd ask what she was thinking about, she'd smile and say, "Work stuff," or "just tired." I told myself it was the stress, the disappointment, the pressure we'd put on ourselves to create life when life seemed determined not to cooperate. But after 26 consecutive months of negative pregnancy tests, I decided I needed to take action. Not couples therapy or meditation or another month of kale smoothies and prenatal vitamins. Something practical. Something definitive. I made an appointment with a fertility specialist. Dr. Patricia Huang came highly recommended, Columbia-trained, decades of experience, the kind of doctor who dealt with complex cases and didn't waste time with platitudes. I scheduled the appointment for a Tuesday morning, telling Rachel I had an early client meeting. I didn't tell her what I was really doing. I wanted to go alone first, get some basic tests done. Maybe it was something simple on my end. Low sperm count, hormone imbalance, something easily treatable. Why put Rachel through the anxiety of another medical appointment if it turned out to be nothing serious? I thought I was being considerate, sparing her unnecessary worry. I had no idea I was about to discover the real reason we hadn't conceived. Dr. Huang's office was exactly what you'd expect from a Manhattan fertility specialist. Sterile white walls, medical diplomas in expensive frames, and the kind of absolute quiet that makes your heartbeat sound unnaturally loud. I sat in the leather chair across from her desk, expecting routine news. Maybe some dietary suggestions, maybe a recommendation for a supplement or lifestyle change. At worst, maybe we'd need to try some basic fertility treatments. I'd prepared myself for that conversation with Rachel. How we'd navigate IVF financially, emotionally, logistically. I was not prepared for what Dr. Huang actually told me. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, her voice gentle but unflinchingly direct. "Your test results show complete sterility due to a genetic condition called Klinefelter syndrome. It's something you were born with." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my grip tighten on the arms of the chair. "I'm sorry, what does that mean exactly?" I asked. "It means you cannot father children." "Not now, not ever. This isn't a low sperm count issue or a hormone problem we can treat. The condition causes complete azoospermia, absence of sperm in the ejaculate," she explained. She slid a folder across the desk toward me. "These are your complete test results, verified by 3 different specialists." I wanted to be absolutely certain before delivering this news. I stared at the medical documents, seeing the words but not really processing them. Numbers and percentages and medical terminology that all pointed to the same impossible conclusion. "There's no treatment?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "None. I'm very sorry," she replied, her expression compassionate but clinical. "However, there are many options for couples in your situation. Sperm donation, adoption, various assisted reproductive technologies. With your wife's apparent fertility, donor insemination could be very successful." She kept talking. Statistics about success rates, information about counseling services, pamphlets about sperm banks, but I'd stopped listening. My mind was reeling, trying to process the magnitude of what I'd just learned. 2 years, 26 months of trying to conceive, 26 months of Rachel's tears and hope and desperate optimization of every variable she could control, 26 months of trying to achieve a biological impossibility. I thanked Dr. Huang numbly, accepted the folder of documentation, and somehow managed to walk to my car without collapsing. I sat in the parking garage for over an hour, staring at nothing, trying to figure out how to rebuild my entire understanding of my life. How do you tell the woman you love that you can never give her the one thing she wants most? How do you tell someone who spent 2 years blaming herself for failed conception that the problem was always you, and that it's not fixable? I imagined the conversation a dozen different ways. Rachel's face when I told her, the way her dreams would crumble in real time. Would she resent me? Would she leave? Our entire future would need to be completely reimagined. The drive home was a blur. I made it through dinner that night on autopilot, answering Rachel's questions about my day with vague responses about client meetings and project deadlines. She was exhausted from her own long day, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, and I was grateful for her distraction. I needed time to process this before having the conversation that would change everything. I decided to wait until Thursday, give myself a few days to find the right words, the right approach. I'd make us a nice dinner, just the two of us, no distractions, and tell her the truth as gently as possible. We'd face this together, figure out our options, decide what our future would look like. Tuesday passed in a haze. Wednesday, the same. I carried the medical report in my briefcase like a ticking bomb, rehearsing different versions of the conversation. I practiced in the bathroom mirror while Rachel slept, trying to find words that would minimize the devastation. Thursday arrived. I left work early, stopped at the grocery store, picked up ingredients for Rachel's favorite pasta dish. I set the table with candles, opened a bottle of the wine we'd been saving for a special occasion. I was as ready as I'd ever be to tell my wife that I couldn't give her children, and to face whatever came next. Then Rachel walked through the front door. Her face was glowing in a way I hadn't seen in months. Her eyes were bright, almost feverish with excitement. She was trembling slightly, clutching her purse against her chest like it contained something precious. "James," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "I have something incredible to tell you." My heart sank. I knew what was coming. Another negative test, and now I'd have to deliver my own devastating news on top of her disappointment. But I was wrong. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small plastic stick. Even from across the room, I could see the two unmistakable pink lines. "We're going to have a baby," she announced. The world stopped. Everything around me, the carefully set table, the candles, the smell of garlic bread in the oven, faded into white noise. My brain tried to process what I was seeing, but it was like trying to solve an equation where the numbers didn't exist. I felt my face arrange itself into a smile. Pure instinct, automatic as breathing. That's incredible, honey," I managed to say. The words came out of my mouth, but they sounded like someone else speaking. Someone who didn't have medical documentation proving this moment was impossible. Rachel threw her arms around me, crying happy tears into my shoulder. "I knew it would happen. I just knew we'd get our miracle," she exclaimed. I held her, feeling her body shake with joy against mine, while my mind screamed a single word on endless repeat: impossible, impossible, impossible. The medical report was in my briefcase, 10 feet away. 3 specialists had confirmed my complete sterility. The tests had been run multiple times. There was no margin of error. My wife was pregnant. These two facts could not coexist in the same universe, but they did. I held Rachel while she celebrated our miracle, murmuring appropriate responses. "I can't believe it. This is amazing. I love you so much." While my brain slowly began to accept the only possible explanation. The child she was carrying couldn't be mine, which meant my wife had been sleeping with someone else. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to Rachel, listening to her breathe, watching her unconscious smile in the moonlight streaming through our bedroom window. She'd fallen asleep with one hand resting on her still flat stomach, already protective of the life growing inside her, the life that wasn't mine. The next morning, I called Dr. Huang's office from my locked office at work. My voice cracked as I asked the question I already knew the answer to. "Doctor, is there any possibility, any chance at all, that your tests could have been wrong? Could there be some kind of medical miracle, some condition that would make pregnancy possible despite my diagnosis?" I asked desperately. The silence on the other end of the line stretched just long enough to give me hope. Then Dr. Huang's voice came through, gentle but absolutely final. "Mr. Mitchell, I triple-checked your results personally. I had 2 colleagues review them independently. Your condition is absolute. There is 0 chance, and I emphasize the word 0, that you could father a child." A pause. Then, more carefully, she added, "I think you know what this means. I'm very sorry. What do I do now?" I asked. "I'd recommend waiting until the baby is born and requesting a paternity test through legal channels. It will protect you in any subsequent divorce proceedings," she advised. "Divorce proceedings." The words hit me like ice water. I thanked her and hung up, then sat in my office staring at the family photos on my desk. Rachel laughing at our wedding, her dress catching the sunlight. Rachel on vacation in Cancun, tanned and beautiful and completely, utterly mine. Rachel asleep on our couch with our cat curled up on her chest. My marriage had ended 2 days ago. I just hadn't known it yet. The pain was overwhelming, not just the betrayal, but the complete destruction of everything I'd built my life around. The family I'd dreamed of. The trust I'd thought was unbreakable. The woman I'd loved without reservation for 5 years. All of it was a lie. But underneath the pain, something else began to crystallize. Something colder, more calculating. She was going to let me raise another man's child. She was going to lie to me for the rest of our lives, let me believe I was a father, let me love and provide for a child that wasn't mine. She would have watched me change diapers and attend school plays and teach someone else's kid to ride a bike, and she never would have told me the truth. That level of deception wasn't a mistake. It was sociopathic. I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. That afternoon, I researched divorce attorneys online. I found Brady Gray, recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a particularly nasty separation. His website was all sharp suits and steel gray backgrounds, the kind of lawyer who fought to win, not to make friends. I told Rachel I had to work late and drove to Brady's downtown office that evening. Brady listened to my story without interruption, examined the fertility report with professional detachment, and nodded grimly when I finished. His advice was strategic and brutal. Don't tell her you know. Don't confront her. Don't give any indication that you're aware of the infidelity. Let her believe you're completely clueless, he instructed. For how long? I asked. Until after the baby is born? Then we'll get a court-ordered paternity test. With your sterility documented and DNA evidence proving the affair, she gets nothing in the divorce. No alimony, no assets, no sympathy from the judge, he explained. What about the baby? I asked. Brady's expression didn't change. Not your child, not your responsibility. You'll owe nothing, financially, legally, or emotionally. He explained the prenup Rachel and I had signed 5 years ago. We'd been young and optimistic, thinking it was just a formality. But the document had a very clear infidelity clause. If either party committed adultery, they forfeited any claim to marital assets. With proof of her affair, she walks away with nothing, Brady said. But only if you don't tip your hand. Only if you wait and let her hang herself. He leaned forward, his expression intense. Can you do that? Can you smile and play the excited father for 9 months while documenting everything? Can you live with this woman, sleep next to her, pretend everything is normal while building the case that will destroy her? I thought about Rachel's face when she'd shown me the pregnancy test. Her joy, her lies, her complete willingness to build our entire future on deception. Yes, I said. I can do that. I signed the retainer agreement that night. Then I drove home and told Rachel how excited I was about becoming a father. I held her, kissed her forehead, told her everything was going to be perfect. Inside, I was already gone. The next 9 months wouldn't be a marriage. They'd be an investigation, a performance, a long, cold preparation for the moment when I'd drop the hammer and watch her world collapse just like mine had. I started a password-protected folder on my laptop that night. I began documenting everything. Bank statements showing my income supporting our household, Rachel's work schedule, every penny we spent. I took photos of Derek Chambers whenever he showed up at company events, saved screenshots of Rachel's increasingly distant behavior. I played the role of excited husband-to-be perfectly. And underneath that performance, I planned, I waited, and I smiled. Playing the part of an excited, expectant father while knowing the child isn't yours is a special kind of torture. Every smile feels like swallowing glass. Every tender moment burns like acid. But I committed to the performance completely. I went to every ultrasound appointment, holding Rachel's hand while staring at grainy images of a child that shared someone else's DNA. I listened to the heartbeat with appropriate wonder, asked the technician questions about development milestones, took photos to share with our families. I painted the nursery a soft yellow, Rachel's choice, since we wanted to be surprised about the gender. I spent 3 hours assembling the crib, following the instructions with meticulous care, while imagining that I was setting up an elaborate trap, piece by piece. I rubbed Rachel's feet when they swelled. I made midnight runs for ice cream when her cravings hit. I attended birthing classes and practiced breathing techniques, the instructor praising what a supportive partner I was. Every act of kindness was a lie. Every "I love you" tasted like poison in my mouth, but I documented everything methodically. I kept detailed spreadsheets of our finances, showing clearly that my income supported our household entirely. I noted every time Rachel seemed distracted, every instance where she quickly hid her phone screen when I entered a room, every moment that felt off, and I started noticing Derek Chambers everywhere. He began showing up at our house with increasing frequency, always with plausible reasons, dropping off work documents, checking on Rachel's workload during her pregnancy, making sure the team wasn't overwhelming her. Always without his wife Michelle, who was perpetually busy or out of town, he'd claim. I'd invite Derek in, offer him a beer, make small talk about sports and the housing market. I watched his eyes linger on Rachel when he thought I wasn't looking. I watched Rachel's body language shift when he was around, a subtle electricity that she tried to suppress but couldn't quite hide. Derek thinks this campaign approach would work better, Rachel would say over dinner, then catch herself and change the subject. She mentioned him constantly, Derek's opinions, Derek's suggestions, Derek's insights about everything from work to parenting books. I smiled and nodded and filed every detail away. Brady Gray and I met monthly at his office. His team was building an airtight case, financial records, timeline documentation, medical evidence. We were preparing for war, and Rachel had no idea she was about to become a casualty. The baby showers were particularly excruciating. Rachel's friends and family gathered to celebrate, bringing gifts and advice and congratulations. I accepted their gratitude for giving Rachel such happiness, listened to speeches about what wonderful parents we'd be, cut cake decorated with baby booties and rattles. Rachel's mother pulled me aside at the largest shower, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for making my daughter so happy." She's glowing. "This baby is such a blessing." I hugged her tightly. "She means everything to me," I said, and it was true. She had meant everything. Before I discovered what she really was, the nights were the worst. Rachel would fall asleep easily, exhausted by pregnancy, while I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Sometimes the rage would build until I had to leave the bedroom, go downstairs, pace the living room until I could breathe normally. Other times, it was just profound sadness, mourning the woman I'd thought I married, the life I'd thought we'd build together, the man I'd been before learning that love and trust could be demolished so completely. But I never broke character. Not once. The pregnancy progressed into the 3rd trimester. Rachel was excited, nervous, nesting with increasing intensity. She talked constantly about our baby, our family, our future. Each time I smiled and agreed, while mentally adding these moments to my growing catalog of her lies. 3 weeks before the due date, Derek showed up at our door again. Rachel seemed surprised, almost panicked for a brief moment, but quickly recovered. I was in the neighborhood, Derek claimed, and wanted to drop off a baby gift. It was an expensive stroller system, top of the line, the kind that costs more than most people spend on car repairs. Far too generous for a boss giving an employee a gift. "This is incredibly generous," I said, helping him carry it inside. "You really didn't need to do this." "Rachel's been such a valuable team member," Derek replied smoothly. "Especially during the pregnancy. I wanted to show my appreciation." We sat in the living room, the 3 of us, discussing baby names and parenting strategies. Derek's hand briefly touched Rachel's shoulder when he made a point about work-life balance. The gesture could have been innocent. It wasn't. Rachel seemed unsettled after Derek left. "That was nice of him," she said, too casually. "Very generous," I agreed. "He must think very highly of you. He's just a good boss," Rachel said quickly. I kissed her forehead. "You're lucky to have such supportive people at work." That night, I added another entry to my documentation. Derek Chambers delivered $800 stroller. Inappropriate physical contact observed. Rachel visibly nervous. Affair ongoing throughout pregnancy. 2 weeks later, Rachel went into labor on a Saturday morning. I drove her to the hospital, timing her contractions, holding her hand, coaching her breathing through each wave of pain. I told her she was doing great, that I was proud of her, that our baby would be here soon. When Emma was finally born, a daughter, the nurses placed her in my arms. She was tiny pink, screaming, "Beautiful, despite everything." "She has your eyes," someone said. I nodded and said thank you. Brady had already arranged for the DNA test through the hospital's laboratory. Results would be available within 48 hours. I cut the umbilical cord with steady hands, then passed the baby to Rachel. "She's perfect," Rachel whispered, tears streaming down her face. "James, she's absolutely perfect." "Yes," I said quietly, watching her hold another man's child. "Everything's perfect." I held my breath for the next 2 days. Not because I doubted the results. I knew with absolute certainty that Emma wasn't mine. But because those results would be the final piece of evidence I needed to destroy Rachel's life completely. When the call came from Brady confirming what we already knew, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, but completion. All the pieces were in place. Now came the final act. 1 week after bringing Emma home, I told Rachel I wanted to host a small celebration. Just close family and a few friends to meet our new daughter. Rachel was exhausted from sleepless nights and constant feeding, but she smiled at the suggestion. "That's sweet, honey. Just something small?" she asked. "Very small," I assured her. "Maybe both sets of parents, your sister, a few close friends." I paused, as if the thought had just occurred to me. "You should invite Derek and Michelle, too. After all, he's been so supportive during your pregnancy." For just a moment, a split second, something like panic flashed across Rachel's face. Then she recovered, nodding slowly. "Sure, I mean, if you think that's appropriate," she replied hesitantly. "Of course it's appropriate. He's your boss. He's been incredibly generous with the stroller and everything. It would be rude not to include him," I said. Derek accepted the invitation immediately when Rachel called. I made all the other arrangements myself, catering, decorations, everything. I wanted this celebration to be perfect. The day arrived gray and overcast, which seemed fitting. Our house filled up gradually. Both sets of parents, Rachel's sister Jenny, a few close friends from college, Derek and Michelle. Everyone brought gifts and congratulations, taking turns holding Emma, marveling at her tiny fingers and perfect features. Derek arrived with Michelle, the first time I'd seen them together in months. Michelle looked uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be there. Derek was his usual charismatic self, congratulating Rachel loudly, praising Emma's beauty, playing the role of supportive boss perfectly. I watched them carefully. Derek's eyes found Rachel across the room repeatedly. Rachel avoided direct eye contact with him, her body language tense whenever he was near. They were both good actors, but not good enough. After an hour of small talk and cooing over the baby, I stood up and tapped my champagne glass with a fork. The room quieted, conversations trailing off as people turned to look at me. Rachel smiled at me from the couch, tired but happy, probably expecting a sweet speech about fatherhood and gratitude. "I want to say something," I began, my voice calm and steady. 5 years ago, I married the woman I thought would be my partner for life. 2 years ago, we started trying to have a baby together. People nodded, smiling. This sounded like a normal gratitude speech. 9 months ago, Rachel told me she was pregnant. It was supposed to be our miracle, I continued, letting the word hang in the air for a moment. And I was so happy. We'd tried for so long. Rachel's smile started to falter. Something in my tone was wrong. But 10 months ago, a month before Rachel told me she was pregnant, I visited a fertility specialist. Dr. Patricia Huang, I explained, pulling a folder from the coffee table beside me. Because I wanted to know if there was a problem on my end, something we could fix. The room was very quiet now. Rachel had gone pale. The results were definitive, I stated, my voice remaining perfectly steady. I have a genetic condition called Klinefelter syndrome. Complete sterility. I cannot father children. It's medically impossible, Rachel's mother gasped softly. My father leaned forward, confused. I pulled copies of the medical report from the folder and handed them to both sets of parents. Here's the documentation, certified by 3 separate specialists. You can read it yourselves. James, what are you... Rachel's voice was shaking. Why are you doing this now? Because I want everyone here to understand what happened next, I replied. After Emma was born, I requested a DNA test, court-certified, processed through the hospital laboratory. I looked directly at Rachel, and my voice cut through the silence like a blade. I am not Emma's father. The room exploded. Rachel's mother made a strangled sound. Her father's face turned crimson with rage. Michelle Chambers stood up abruptly, her wine glass falling to the floor and shattering. That's not... Rachel was crying now, shaking her head frantically. James, please, we need to talk about this privately. No, Rachel's father roared, his voice making everyone jump. Who is it? He was on his feet, scanning the room with murder in his eyes. Who destroyed my daughter's marriage? Rachel was sobbing, unable to speak. Everyone was staring, my parents in shock. Rachel's sister with her hand over her mouth. Friends looking at each other in horror. I turned slowly to Derek Chambers, who had gone completely white and was edging toward the door. Would you like to tell them, Derek? My voice was quiet, deadly calm. Or should I? Michelle Chambers put it together first. Her head snapped toward her husband, realization dawning across her face like a brutal sunrise. You son of a bitch, she breathed. You got her pregnant? Michelle, I can explain, Derek stammered, backing away. How long? Michelle's voice was rising to a scream. How long have you been f***ing her? Rachel's father didn't wait for an answer. He crossed the room in 3 strides, and his fist connected with Derek's jaw with a sickening crack. Derek went down hard, crashing into a side table. Picture frames and decorations flying, everywhere. Rachel's father kicked him in the ribs, before my own father and Jenny's. Husband could grab his arms and pull him back. You destroyed my daughter's marriage! He was screaming, struggling against the men holding him. You piece of shit! I'll kill you! Derek scrambled toward the door, blood pouring from his nose. Michelle chased after him, screaming about lawyers and taking everything in the divorce. Emma woke up and started crying. Rachel was hysterical now, barely able to form words through her sobs. It was a mistake. It only happened a few times. I prayed the baby might still be yours, James, she cried. A few times? I asked, my voice cutting through the chaos. How long, Rachel? She could barely speak. A year. It started about a year ago. Her mother looked like she'd been physically struck. Rachel Marie, what have you done? She whispered, I love James. Rachel screamed, her face blotchy with tears and snot. Derek meant nothing. It was just... I don't know why I did it. But I love you. She reached for me desperately. I stepped back. Then why did you keep seeing him? Why did you let him come to our house? Sit on our couch? Why did you let me believe for 9 months that I was going to be a father? Rachel had no answer. Just broken sobs. I pulled out one final document. Divorce papers were filed 3 days ago. I've provided all evidence to my attorney, the sterility report, the DNA test, financial records proving my support of this household, documentation of your ongoing affair. You'll receive nothing in the divorce. No alimony, no assets, no claim to this house or my income. The prenup we signed has a very clear infidelity clause. James, please... Rachel reached for me again. I stepped back further. Don't touch me! You're not my wife anymore. That baby isn't my daughter. You made your choices. Now live with them. I turned to Rachel's parents, who looked devastated and broken. I'd appreciate if you'd take your daughter and the child to your house. I want them gone within the hour. Rachel's mother was crying silently. Her father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes, but he nodded slowly. We'll take her, he said quietly. James, I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry, I didn't respond. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. Everyone who doesn't live here needs to leave. Now, I announced. The exodus was swift and silent. Friends gathered purses and coats without making eye contact. My parents hugged me briefly, my mother whispering, I'm so sorry. Honey, before leaving, within 2 hours. The house was empty except for Rachel's sobbing in the bedroom while her mother packed essentials and baby supplies. Rachel herself was too hysterical to function. Her father practically carried her to the car. You'll regret this! Rachel screamed from the driveway, her voice raw and broken. You're abandoning your daughter! I looked at her one last time through the open doorway. Her face was swollen and red, her hair a mess, her whole body shaking with rage and grief. "She's not my daughter," I said quietly. "She's Derek's problem now." I closed the door. The house fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. For the first time in 9 months, I could finally breathe. 3 months later, I sat in Brady Gray's office reviewing the final divorce decree. The proceeding had been swift and brutal. With DNA evidence and documented proof of adultery, there was nothing for Rachel to contest. "Cleanest divorce I've ever handled," Brady said. She didn't even fight it. Her attorney took one look at the evidence and advised her to sign everything. I kept the house, both vehicles, all savings, my retirement funds, everything. Rachel received nothing. The judge's ruling was cold and final. Infidelity with documented proof voided any claim to marital assets. Derek Chambers' life imploded spectacularly. Michelle filed for divorce with a ruthless attorney who destroyed him in court. She got their house, half his retirement, substantial alimony, and made sure everyone knew exactly why. Derek's reputation in advertising was finished. Betrayal this public meant career death. He was quietly forced to resign. Rachel filed for child support. Derek fought it initially, but DNA evidence is definitive. He was ordered to pay, though his reduced income meant far less than Rachel expected. He refused any other involvement in Emma's life. Heard these updates through mutual acquaintances, distant news about strangers. Liv's Rachel moved back with her parents and Emma. The dynamic was toxic. Her father barely spoke to her, still furious. Her mother helped with the baby out of obligation rather than joy, grandmother's love tainted by disappointment. Rachel's social circle evaporated. Friends stopped calling after the scandal. She'd become a cautionary tale, the woman who destroyed her perfect marriage for a meaningless affair. I sold the townhouse within 6 months. Too many memories haunted those rooms. I bought a downtown condo instead, modern, clean, no history. Starting over. Therapy helped immensely. Dr. Sarah Chen specialized in betrayal trauma. It took months, but slowly the bitterness faded. Not into forgiveness, I'd never forgive, but into acceptance. It happened. It was over. I survived. 6 months after the divorce, I received a promotion. Senior director, significant raise, corner office. For the first time in over a year, I felt genuine pride. My boss pulled me aside. "You've been through hell, James. You could have let it destroy your career. Instead, you showed up every day and did exceptional work. That takes real strength," he said. I reconnected with old friends, joined a hiking group, started playing tennis again. Slowly, I remembered who I'd been before Rachel. At a networking event, I met Lauren Chen, a software architect. When she mentioned her recent divorce after her ex-husband's gambling destroyed their finances, I said quietly, "I understand what that's like." We talked for hours about betrayal and recovery. She didn't pity me. She understood. We exchanged numbers, made plans for coffee. 1 year after the revelation, I was thriving. Lauren and I were dating seriously, building something real based on honesty and earned trust. Rachel was struggling. Single motherhood without support or security. Her career never recovered. Advertising was small, everyone knew. Her parents helped with Emma, but the relationship remained strained. She tried reaching out once, a desperate email starting. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope we can be friends for Emma's sake." I read the first line and deleted the rest. There was nothing left to say. Derek had lost everything. Marriage, career, reputation, savings. He lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, paying minimal child support for a daughter he refused to acknowledge. Sometimes I thought about that moment when Rachel showed me the pregnancy test, my world shattering while my face stayed calm. I could have confronted her immediately, but waiting, documenting everything, building an airtight case, gave me control. Gave me justice. When the truth finally detonated, it happened in front of everyone who mattered to her. She couldn't spin it or make me the villain. She destroyed herself in front of witnesses. I learned something about revenge. It doesn't have to be hot and immediate. Sometimes it's cold and calculated. Sometimes it's knowing when to wait for the perfect moment. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's walking away and building a better life where you never look back. 2 years after the revelation, I stand in my downtown condo on a Sunday morning, drinking coffee and watching the city wake up. Lauren is still asleep. We're moving in together next month. It feels right. I rarely think about Rachel anymore. When I do, it's without the searing pain. She's become a cautionary tale, nothing more. Emma exists somewhere in the city, a toddler being raised by Rachel and her parents. I feel nothing for her, not anger, not affection. She's a stranger's child. Some called me cruel for walking away, but staying would have been crueler. Derek's life never recovered. His career ended permanently. Rachel works low-level marketing, living with her parents at 34. I think about men who get trapped, discovering infidelity after bonding with children who aren't theirs. Legally bound by ignorance. I waited. I documented. I protected myself. When the moment came, I struck with precision. Some might call it cold. I call it justice. My phone buzzes. Lauren asking about breakfast. I smile and head to make pancakes. The past is past. My future is real and honest. Sometimes the best revenge is refusing to be a victim. Sometimes living well isn't just the best revenge, it's the only one that matters. Some stories end with forgiveness. This one ends with freedom.